It's bedtime.
Wake up! Not that kind of bedtime. It's time to build a bed for this thing. Let's get to it. This is my 1930 Dodge Coupe that we're turning into a pickup truck. Got a new floor. Check. New firewall. Check. Diesel engine. Check. Four-wheel drive. Check. Everything but a bed. So in this episode, we're gonna build a bed for this thing. What's it gonna look like? Well, I have a vague picture in my head of what I want it to look like. Most of the truck beds from this era looked pretty much the same. There might have been some slight differences in it, but I'm not trying to make this look exactly like somebody else's bed or a different bed from a Model A or something like that. So what's the easiest way to start? Well, for me, I think it'd be easiest if we start building the floor, so I guess let's do that. Okay, similar to building the floor in the truck, I'm building the floor in the bed out of some square tubing. The rear piece is going to be some 2x2 11 gauge. And then the remainder of it's going to be 1.5 inches. I'll explain why I'm using a bigger piece on the back when we get to that point. But I'm going to get some of this tube cut up and then start welding it together. Whoop. Ooh. Okay, that structure is going to look something like this. I just got to weld that up. Get on the ground! Okay, there's that structure all welded up. I had some extra, so I put a little strip down the middle for more strength because overkill ain't going to hurt this thing. Before you ask me how I know if it's square, it's not, it's rectangle. It's about 5 foot and 4 foot wide, and that's about as much working on the ground as my back can handle, so I'm gonna pick this thing up and get it in the air. All right, that ain't gonna hold that. All right, so this is gonna be the rear of the bed where the tailgate sits, and I used a piece of 2x2 here so that I can build some structure inside of it because I'm worried that the bed sides on the end where the tailgate are gonna be too flimsy flopping around. I've never built a bed like this, but I assume that if it's only sheet metal holding it up there, it's not gonna be very strong. So I wanna hide some structure inside the edges of the bed if possible. So my plan is to weld some more 2x2 on the side like this, sticking up. That's gonna give me some solid pieces to weld to, which should make the bed sides a heck of a lot stronger. Okay, got both of those welded on. And I bought 4 of these stake pockets. Bought these because it was cheaper to just buy them than it would be to build them myself and less of a headache. These are gonna go like this, something like that, and I can weld these stake pockets to that piece of steel on the inside. So you'll never see that piece of steel, and it should make the sides of the bed really strong, prevent them from wanting to fold in at the end where the tailgate is. All right, also speaking about things that I bought because it was cheaper to just buy and easier than it would be to build it is this tailgate that I got. You can get these tailgates for really cheap online. So got a basic like 30s tailgate here, and this is gonna go right here like this. And having this steel on the ends of the bed gives me a good spot to make a really strong tab that I can use for a hinge point on this thing. So that's another reason why I did this. But I think next I'm gonna make a tab to mount this tailgate to so that tailgate will be mounted. Pro tip, drill the hole first and then put the template on it. Trace the template, and then when you cut it out, the hole's in the exact spot that you wanted it to be. All right, I cut these tabs, and these are going to hold the tailgate. Typically on a tailgate like this, there was a like half piece of pipe that came out and went around here, and that was the hinge for it, but I don't like the way that looks. So I made these tabs. These are gonna go here, and I welded a nut inside the end of the tailgate there, and that's what these are gonna bolt to. And that's gonna be the hinge point. And these are probably gonna weld in here. So I guess we'll do that real quick. All right, got those all welded in. This is how the tailgate's gonna open and close now. I think that looks a lot better than that half pipe type hinge setup that they usually use. Next, I'm gonna trim these pieces down so that these will fit back on here. Okay, just temporarily clamped the stake pockets back here, and then I ran a self-tapper in there because eventually this is all gonna get welded together, but I don't wanna weld it just yet because I'm gonna end up taking this all apart so I can get epoxy on the inside. You guys know how much I love epoxy. But this is what the tailgate and the rear stake pockets are gonna look like. Next, let's start building this bedside. Okay, check this out. I don't have a big enough brake to bend a piece of metal that's more than 4 foot long. So I had a place that's local to me bend these pieces of sheet metal up for me. These are gonna be the bedsides. This is some 16 gauge sheet metal. The place that did it is called Superb Fabrication in South Lyon. They are super awesome people to deal with. If you guys are local to the area and you need anything bent or any type of metal work done, they have all kinds of capabilities there. They do laser cutting, bending, robotic welding, anything you can think of regarding metal, but super awesome people to deal with, and that's who bent these up. Anyway, they're a little bit longer than what I need, so I'm gonna cut them down to length and then start doing some work to them. All right, for the bottom edge of this bedside, I could easily make it just go straight across right here, but I think it would look better if it came across and then at about the axle, it tilted down and then went straight across so that the front portion of the bed was a little bit longer than the rear portion of the bed. That's because if you look at the frame right here on the back of the truck, it kicks up and then the back half sits up higher than it does in the front. So if we make the bed similar to that, I think it'll look really good, so that's what I'm gonna do. All right, got my layout all done. Now I just gotta cut this out and then bend up the edges. Oh. All right, brake didn't work, so I'll make my own. Okay, got that all bent up. It's kind of a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be, but it's bent up and it looks really good. I think I'm gonna set it in place, see how it looks. Ooh, it's starting to look like a truck bed. All right, well, I got this clamped into place. I think I'm gonna bend up the other one since that was hard. So I'm gonna get that out of the way real quick. All right, cut, bend, hammer, repeat, all the things. Now we got the other side done, and this thing is looking sweet. It's definitely starting to look like a truck bed now. You can kind of see the look I was going for. But before I go any further, I want to weld up all these joints on the edges that I folded over, and then clean up the cuts on the back corners inside the tailgate there, and then put these bedsides back on just to get that out of the way. So I guess I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, since we have both bed sides and a tailgate, the next thing we need to do is build the front of the bed. And that's basically gonna look just like the tailgate, but it's gonna be welded in place. It's gonna go up here. I've seen some of these panels that come to the top of the bed sides, but I don't like that as much as the ones that come just to the bend right here. So I'm basically gonna make the tailgate, but it's gonna be a panel that's welded in place. So let's get started on that. Okay, I got that piece all folded up. This side was too long to fit in the brake, so I just folded that over by hand. And if you notice, I folded the edges in one direction and the bottom in another direction, and that's because of the way I want it to sit inside the bed. I'll show you. All right, that piece is gonna sit inside here just like this. And I want it to protrude out on the back side a little bit, because this is the back of the cab, and the back of the cab has a curve to it. And so if I do it this way, I can put the bed closer to the cab, and then there won't be such a big gap between the cab and the bed. It'll look more like a modern pickup truck where there is no gap between the cab and the bed. You know, the original style, this bed probably sat an inch or two away from the cab and you could see clear through it. I want to try and eliminate that just because the back of the cab is curved. So that's why I did it like this. And now, if you look, the top of the tailgate has a round piece of tube on it. So I'm gonna cut a piece of round tube and weld it to the top of this to match the top of the tailgate. All right, this is some 1.5" DOM tube that I had laying around. So I just cut that to length, and this is gonna go right here. Something like that, which is gonna make it look just like the tailgate. So let me weld this to it. All right, got that all welded up. You just got to take your time when you're doing something like this. We're not trying to make like a structural weld. This is just to hold the sheet metal to this piece of tube. So just weld a little bit at a time. Now that it's all done, I'm gonna grind it down real quick, then we can set it back in place. All right, got that all ground down. Now this is gonna go in here like this. All right, that panel's all done. I also went ahead and drilled a bunch of holes in the sides here and also down in here so that I have a spot to spot weld once I reassemble this thing. But I think that turned out really good. It looks just like the tailgate. Okay, you're probably wondering if the top of the front of the bed and the top of the tailgate are round. Shouldn't the sides of the beds be round? And I thought you guys had never asked, so I have some 1.75" tube here, and this is gonna go right on the side of the bed here, just like this on both sides. I'm just gonna cut the bedside down a little bit so that this fits better and weld these on there. All right, just like that front panel, I welded that piece of pipe on the top of it. I'm gonna weld this entire thing right here. It's just gonna take a little bit. You just gotta take your time. I don't wanna weld the entire thing all at once because it'll get too hot and end up bending this piece of tube, so I guess I'm just gonna weld away. All right, about 5 foot of welding, and that's all welded up. Now I'm just gonna grind this down. All right, got that all ground down and just threw the bedside on so you could get a good look at it, and it's looking pretty sweet. Also put this front stake pocket on. It's just clamped into place so you can see what that looks like. Now I gotta repeat the whole process on the other bedside. All right, just did the other side. Again, if you just take your time and slowly weld this, you won't warp it. You just weld a little bit and move over, weld a little bit more. It takes a little bit of time, but eventually you get the entire thing welded. And then I ground it down, put her on there. Thing looks pretty sweet. I think next I'm gonna make this little panel that goes below the tailgate here. It's not really called a roll pan because the roll pan would be on the bumper, but whatever you wanna call this little panel, I'm gonna make that real quick. Okay, that piece was like 2 inches too big for my brake, so I just bent it by hand, and then I drilled some holes in it for some spot welds. This is gonna go right here. Something like that. All right, with that piece just temporarily screwed into place, the next thing I'm gonna do is build the floor for this, and I wanna make the floor out of sheet metal, and I just wanna do that because it's different than wood. I know typically it'd be wood with the metal strips in between each piece of wood, but I don't want to do that for this one. I want to have a metal floor, so I guess I'm going to cut a piece of sheet metal for this. Okay, check it out. I just folded that edge over a little bit to make a nice finished edge. Put that piece of sheet metal back in there. And basically got a completed bed now. Put the tailgate back on. This thing looks pretty sweet. All right, this is finally at the point where I want to take this thing completely apart and then put epoxy on the whole thing. Then after the epoxy's on it, I can weld the entire thing together as one solid piece. So I guess let me take this thing apart, get some epoxy on it. All right, check it out. We are at maximum capacity here. I've got all the parts to the bed in the booth up here, and I went ahead and prepped them for epoxy. Can barely walk around in here. I got so much stuff going on. I also went ahead and I pre-painted some epoxy down in these hard to reach areas with a brush, and I did that because spraying it in there, the epoxy is not really going to go all the way down in there. It's going to blow out from in there, and it's going to be almost impossible to get epoxy down in these hard to reach areas. So I like to go ahead and brush some down in there first. That way I know that there's epoxy down in there. Plus, once this bed gets assembled, these are going to be right side up, and so spraying epoxy in there when they're right side up is going to be even harder. So doing it this way allows me to ensure that there is definitely epoxy on all of these areas. The reason I know that is because it's dripping out and it's all on the floor now. That's all right. I'd rather have epoxy down in there than to not. So I guess next thing we need to do is spray some epoxy on all this stuff. All right, just like before, we're using SPI epoxy, and this is black. You can get it in a couple different colors, but just gonna mix this up, spray it on there. Okay, it's the next day. This stuff's had some time to dry overnight. It all looks really good. Looks like it got epoxy on everything. Everything that I could see, at least. Next thing I need to do is get all this out of here and get it down in the other garage and start putting this thing back together. Okay, just like when I was doing the floor in this thing, I've got the panels all mocked up where they're gonna go, and now I'm gonna take a paint marker and mark where all the spot welds are. I'm gonna take these panels back off and grind a little bit of the epoxy off where I'm gonna weld. Truck bed. Assemble! Okay, I got all the bedsides mocked up. They fit really good. It's really satisfying to reassemble something like this after you've put epoxy on it, because it's like you're working with a part that was manufactured, not something that you made yourself. So that's really good, but ready to weld, so I'm gonna weld all these little spot welds now. All right, a spot like this is exactly why I epoxy all of this before I assemble it, because if you look, there's epoxy all up in here, and there's epoxy on the back side of this piece, and at the very top here, and when I put this in here, you can see that there's almost no way to get up in there to get epoxy on all of this or to ensure that it's covered in epoxy. So doing it this way, you can see that everything is 100% coated with something to prevent it from rusting, and then I can weld this on here and just touch up these welds with more epoxy. So that's what I'm gonna do. Welding montage, put epoxy on the welds, welding montage, repeat. Yep. weld it. Alright, it's the next day. I got all of this welded. It's starting to look like a truck bed again. I ground down all of the welds last night and then brushed some epoxy on them. I got some epoxy all up inside here where the floor overlaps the back edge of the bed. And anyway, I threw the tailgate back on, and in order to make this tailgate function, I need to make a latch, and these beds usually use a chain, and I bought a chain and it came with these latches. These are going to go right here, so I'm going to weld these on. Alright, that's going to go like that. Chain will go through it like this. Now I just got to drill a hole right about here for the other end of the chain to go through. This goes through the stake pocket to hold the chain. Alright, square hole, square peg. Tailgate chain. Okay, that's how the tailgate latches work. Like that. Go ahead and leave a comment below and tell me that they make a cover for these chains so that they don't chip the paint up. I really want to hear that. Okay, it's starting to look like a complete bed. I just can't help but feel like it's still kind of missing something. Maybe something in this area right here. Maybe something like this. Alright, these are the original fenders from when this car was a coupe. And you can see that they were bolted up through the side here. I'm just going to modify these ones. I'm going to weld some sheet metal on the sides here so that we can bolt it to the side of the bed, just like this. I think that'll make it look more complete. Plus, these being the original fenders will help tie it all together. So I guess let's do that now. Template. Alright, so I cut all those holes off where it used to bolt to the quarter panels on the coupe, and then cut this piece of sheet metal, and this is going to get welded in right here just like this. I'm going to tack it, start to bend it around. Okay, I got that piece all welded on there. Next, I'm going to put this piece on the inside. And that's going to be the flange that I can bolt this to the bedside with. Okay, got that all welded up and ground down. I welded this from the inside and made it a little bit easier to do. Looks like a truck bed fender now. Next, I want to set it on the bed and see what it looks like. Okay, just got that thing clamped into place right now because I don't know exactly where it's going to sit on the bedside until the bed is on the truck and I can position it over the tire exactly, but it's going to look something like this, and I think it looks pretty sweet. It definitely looks like a truck bed now. Now all I gotta do is repeat this to the other fender. Bam, just like that, the other side's done. This side was a little bit easier since I had learned what to do on that one first. But it turned out really good. I got this one just clamped into place also, so you can see what it looks like. I think this thing looks pretty sweet. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. I know there was a lot of fabrication going on in this video, but now we've got a complete bed here that we can put on this truck. The bed is not actually completely finished. There's still some things we need to do to it. I need to make a bunch of mounting brackets for it. And I don't even know if it's gonna fit on the back of that truck, so maybe leave a comment below if you think it's gonna fit. Hopefully it does. The stake pockets, I don't plan on cutting holes in here because I don't foresee any reason why I would actually need to use these stake pockets. So I'm going to leave these shaved. I guess you can call it a hot rod now because it's got shaved stake pockets. But the bed turned out really good. I like the way the tailgate looks. These chains should definitely chip the paint up really good. If only there was some way I could put a cover on them so that they didn't chip the paint. You know, if it weren't for trucks, we wouldn't have tailgates. Just kidding. The inside of the bed's nice and sheet metaled. This is all gonna get body worked and painted. I'm gonna seam seal around these edges at some point in time, but that's gonna be way in the future. I did also put some provisions in here for some tie-down hooks, and I didn't show that in this video, but I'll show that in a future video. So I guess that's gonna be it for this one. Make sure you guys subscribe and also hit that hype button down there. I don't know what that hype button does, but it seems to be doing something. So hit that hype button and watch out for future videos.
And even though the people in the comments said he ruined it, he still built the truck the way he wanted to anyway. The end.
And just when he was about to finish his project, he ran out of welding gas, and he couldn't get more because it was Saturday and the place was closed until...
I said it's bedtime!